Hello, and welcome to the Franchise Life. I am your host, Stacie Shannon. Today, we are going to dive into a brand called iFOAM. And iFOAM is one of the fastest growing insulation brands in the industry today. And with me today, I have Whit Shepherd, who is the brand director for iFOAM. Welcome, Whit.
Glad to be here, Stacie. Thanks for having us.
My pleasure. Okay, Whit, I admit I know nothing about the insulation industry, and I understand that iFOAM is one of the fastest growing brands in this space today. So let's just take it from the top. Can you just give an introduction to what iFOAM is?
Absolutely love to. And I'll tell you, you're not alone. A majority of our candidates are corporate refugees, right? Looking to get out of corporate America and get into a service-based business. And I would say probably 90+% of them have zero experience in insulation or any other brands that we have. And half of them probably couldn't swing a hammer if they had to. So you're not alone there, because what we're looking for is empire builders, people looking to build great businesses in a market and really grow. And we know that that can't happen if somebody's just so focused on hands-on business versus heads-on business. So, what is iFOAM? Is we're comfort and efficiency insulators. So I want everybody to understand that we're not just a foam insulation company. We're an insulation provider for. It could be the old school bat insulation you see in the strips, or it could be the blown-in cellulose recycled material you see, or the state-of-the-art new thing, which is foam insulation.
So this is a brand that is very new to horsepower brands, and we'll get into horsepower brands in a bit, but this is what we would consider an emerging brand. How many locations do you currently have throughout the United States today?
Yeah, currently over 35 locations now. I'll say that's pretty interesting, as you mentioned, emerging brands. And when you think about horsepower brands and what we do, we're a little bit different than most franchisors. We spent a year now prior to launching iFOAM and even a lot of our other brands of putting a team in place, support and marketing, all the things that we do before we launch it to go out there and build it and grow it. So we're not figuring out along the way. The plane's already in the air. We're already taking off and ready to go. We don't have to stop and pause development. This is just things we've learned over many years in franchising as franchisees and franchisors.
And that's an excellent point, and I'm glad you brought that up. So, horsepower brands, for those listening, just a quick intro, is a franchise development organization, in essence, or a franchise organization that owns and even operates many home service brands. And I think, do you have around 15 in the portfolio today?
So we're currently at 7 brands at the moment, and our goal is 25 brands by 2025. And just to dive a little bit deeper into that, that's 25 brands and or supporting verticals to each one of those brands. So again, where you find the big difference in horsepower brands versus everybody else at market is that we own a lot of these verticals in house: marketing, recruiting, all of your call center, all these other things that you need as a business owner. We own these in house because we have high expectations. And honestly, we just got tired of trying to go to market, try and grab good vendors that would fit what we wanted.
Absolutely. So we'll dive into that a little bit more once we get into the technology and the support of iPhone specifically. So, okay, this is a brand that you say, you're looking for empire builders. They do not need to have direct applicable experience in this space. Um, as far as the services, there are multiple revenue streams under iFOAM, and it's not only for residential, but it's also for commercial. So, can you share a little bit more and dive into some of those different revenue streams and services that iFOAM offers?
Absolutely. So you've got your residential platform, which is new home construction, new builds, and you've got your what we call retrofits, which are older existing homes that are experiencing hot and cold spots in a home. They are experiencing high utility bills, or a lot of people overlook the health side of they could have somebody in the family that has some type of health issue that really relies on really great indoor air quality. So that's our residential platform. When you look at commercial industrial, that is large new construction, commercial industrial platform, as well as some reconstruction on commercial buildings as well. So the way that iFOAM has been set up is it is a volume producer. So as you launch, we want to look at the residential side because of cash flow every single day. Naturally, when you go into the market, and we can kind of go to market as almost the 800-pound gorilla, is we're going to naturally just really kind of merge towards that larger commercial job just due to the volume we're allowed to put out with the way we set up the equipment and vehicles.
So, okay, so this kind of reminds me of my sister owns, or she owned a condo in the Tampa Bay area. And she ended up having mold in her walls. And it turned out to be just a horrific situation because she did not catch it early on. And it was something that spread throughout. So she had to go and get all of the mold remediation, I guess, and any insulation redone. So this does have very much a value proposition as far as to your residential customers. When you're talking iPhone, you're also talking energy savings, I would imagine.
Correct.
And that's applicable both to residential and I would assume to the commercial market.
Absolutely. Right. Because you're going in, and now where air can leave the home, you're now keeping that consistent temperature. So typically you're looking about if you're looking at a residential kind of mindset, typically from like a indoor living space to a attic space, you're about a 10-degree or so difference from what the interior is living space versus what's in the attic. So you're basically putting that foam barrier up on the roof line.
So how do you demonstrate that value when, let's say, I call my local iPhone franchise owner and I want to understand what the cost savings would be for me to re-insulate my home with iPhone? How does that process work?
Yeah, that's great. And this is probably where we really set ourselves apart in a market is that there's going to be some insulation companies out there. Not everybody's going to do all services, but a lot of times these companies are just focused on where is their greatest margin versus what is the best fit for the customer. Again, this is why we really kind of come in saying we're going to give you good, better, best option to what fits your budget. So we're going to come in and do a full home efficiency test, and we're going to show them, hey, reverse airflow with a smoke pin. Here's where air is leaving your home. Here's where your greatest issues are. Heat meters showing them where hot and cold spots are could be throughout the home. And at the end of that whole process, after talking with that customer, we're going to sit down with them with an iPad and say, look, here's what we found out. Here is what the best approach would be and what the cost is, and then on down the line. So we're fully educating the customer. And the value proposition is where they really kind of go, okay, great. Nobody else has come in and educated me on what makes the most sense because with our franchisees, the customers are calling us. We're not door knocking saying, hey, have you thought about changing your insulation? They're calling us and saying, I have this problem. I think you have the solution. If you can come over and educate me and provide a value proposition that's high enough, I'll swipe her credit card or write a check.
So how are those health assessments performed? I mean, I would assume you mentioned the iPad, you sit down with your iPad and you show them, the good, the medium, the best, and so forth. But how are those health assessments performed? And what type of experience does the individual need to have who's performing it?
Yes, the experience is not something where you need somebody that's had a ton of experience in just insulation or foam. A lot of this is due to training back from the home office that's ongoing and continuing. So when we're talking about these inspections that we're going through, is basically um, heat heat and cold spots, where air quality is leaving the home, how much insulation is left in the home, how old the home is, and showing them like, hey, here's basically, you started with this much insulation when you built the home, and now you got this much because it starts to settle. So showing them all those key points of why either adding additional, again, blown in, that may be all they need, or taking all the old stuff out with the things that crawl up in there and all the stuff that we also know we don't probably don't want to get too much into, but replacing that with foam, right? And completely closing that space off.
So I'm on the iPhone website, Whit, and it shows this really cool like laser heat map, like it's pointing at a house. It looks like a tool that
Mhm.
you're pointing at a house, and it shows green, yellow, orange, and red. So is that a proprietary technology that is specific to iPhone that is used?
It's not proprietary. Those are things that a lot of different industries use in different settings. That's just a tool that we've added to iPhone again to further educate the customer on, here is all the reasons why this is so important and why you should look at making a change to your home. It's just all the education we can provide is key. And again, that goes back to that value proposition.
All right. So let's talk about the employee landscape for a concept such as this. You're looking for empire builders. So that means you do not want the owner necessarily working in the business, but on the business and growing the business. So from day one standpoint, what does this employee landscape look like for launching a territory?
Yeah, launching a territory. So a majority of our franchisees are what I like to call semi-involved, right? Um, and they're looking to bring on a GM slash sales manager that's going to oversee the business in the day to day. You need a lead tech and a helper, and then also recommended bringing on a dedicated salesperson to go out there and sell and close jobs.
All right, seems pretty simplistic. And this is a home-based business model. I believe that would require some type of industrial space.
Yeah, recommend industrial warehouse space about 2,500 square foot is what you're looking for, and that's made up of some concrete warehouse space and then a small office. Again, this doesn't need to be on Main Street where people are walking through your door because you're not going to be retail facing.
All right. From a business support standpoint, and this is kind of now going back to the umbrella horsepower brands value and why it's important to a franchisee to really understand this. Um, so, from a business support standpoint, you do have a national call center, and that call center is dedicated to iPhone franchisees and the support of them.
That's correct, and scheduling as well. So they're going to answer the phone. They've been trained. There's a specific way they answer the phones and how they take that call, and then they'll also schedule the calls directly to our franchisees as well.
And that is huge when somebody is considering a business investment. I mean, that is a significant cost savings for not having to have, per se, a full time administrative assistant from the get go that's sitting by the phone and answering it. Some of the other support that, and again, I want to emphasize what you had stated earlier that with each brand or vertical, they have independent, dedicated teams that are supporting franchisees back at Horsepower Corporate in Omaha.
Mhm.
So, what's really cool about and always I guess, kind of impressed me about horsepower brands is all of your, and correct me if I'm wrong, but all of your brands work off of the same technology or back end systems. And so the value of that is, and again, I know you're focused on empire builders, but it also allows for owners in essence. So let's just say I'm here in the West Palm Beach market. If I wanted to open up an iFOAM in West Palm Beach, secure territory, get that business up and running, I could then look at another horsepower brand that would be a complementary fit. And I would already have the familiarity to those systems and the processes and, the corporate staff and so forth. So, you know, from your perspective, when you're talking to candidates, what value does that have when somebody's at a decision making standpoint?
And it adds a ton of value, Stacie, because as you think about this, as you think about the process from the start till evaluating a franchisor and all the time and effort and things that take. Once you've kind of found that right fit, and then you're looking at, okay, I've stood this business up, and now it makes sense. Do I add another supporting business on top of it, right? So stay in the same market, add a business on top, and just keep stacking to whatever your goals are. But I don't have to go back at those rigorous process of evaluating, is this franchisor have good support? Are they going to take care of me? Do we get along? People know that the value that horsepower brings, and everybody is on the same page of like, now it's just me just seeing which business makes the most sense to add on to where I'm already at. And they don't have to go through that long evaluation process again. So that was done by purpose, again, by as what we're looking for in the empire we're looking to build.
All right. So let's go ahead and talk numbers. So
Okay.
with the investment range, it's pretty broad for a home-based business model. The investment range is just rounding up between 240,000 to around 740,000. Can we dive into why the disparity?
Absolutely, I'd love to. And as I shared early on, I've been in franchising, service-based franchising for quite some time, in multiple different types of businesses. And the reason why you see such a difference with iFOAM and even a lot of our other horsepower brands is that we build a true item seven. And what I mean by that is that we are building out an item seven that we give that candidate an opportunity to say, look, big picture is this, right? So as you're growing this business, and you're looking at how you're going to fund it, I've seen so many times to where the franchisor is like, hey, come in at a lower amount. And they get to the point where they're ready to grow. And like, okay, where do I go back and get the funding? Or I don't want to pull it out of my business. It's cash flowing. I don't want to be cash strapped. So what do I do? Do I just be uncomfortable and not grow? Or do I go and try and figure out where I'm going to get it as a small new business owner? For us, we want to be able to set them up front of, hey, I want you to have it and not need it, then need it and not have it. So what we're basically doing is front loading your growth costs into an item seven if you wish to take that route and be prepared to grow at a rapid rate.
And that is significant. They're one of the worst things that anybody could do when looking at a business investment is to go in undercapitalized. And I share that over and over with the clients I work with. I know that marketing, you guys at with this investment and any horsepower brand investment, you front load marketing for a year.
Mhm.
So for that to be funded a year, are there any other buckets that specific to iFOAM that are front loaded similar to marketing?
So in the way we build the budget out, we front load all verticals. So marketing, the call center, the technology and booking, we front load all those costs annually. Now, again, as these candidates are working through their own individual budget, if they decide that going through that just from a monthly basis instead of an annual basis, they can do that. But again, we're thinking big picture. If you're going to go after a traditional SBA loan, it makes the most sense to try and grab as much capital up front as you can. A great example is one of our franchisees that's in Tulsa just crossed his first full year, and he said, I got $1 million SBA loan. He goes, was it more than I needed? Absolutely. He goes, but I knew that I was going to need it earlier than later. And I'm now at that point where I'm glad I did it the way I did.
Wow, that's a great testimonial. So this is a semi-absentee or owner operator. We've talked a lot about empire builders as the ideal investor. What does a day in the life look like for a semi-absentee owner versus an owner operator?
Yeah, great. Yeah, so we like to see somebody that has at least 6 to 12 hours to devote to the business, right? From a semi-absentee standpoint, owner, and then they're going to work very closely with that general manager, right? So the general manager is the face of the business. They're working with the team. They're going out and doing bids. They are networking in and around the community. So from an owner standpoint, high level numbers, KPIs, working directly closely with the marketing team with iFOAM and Horsepower Brands. So just big picture, how can I move the needle quicker, bigger growth? They can focus on that instead of all the small items on the day to day, which we give that GM that opportunity to take care of and handle, so the owner can focus on growth.
All right. So back on the numbers, let's talk return on investment because 240,000 to a $740,000 investment. I mean, your empire builder is going to be focused on what this means to them at the end of the day from an ROI standpoint.
Mhm.
So, can you dive into a little bit of what a prospect would see in an item 19?
Sure. Yes, we have two locations in our item 19. The founder, which is in Alabama, did a little bit over $3.4 million in gross sales. And then a franchisee in Tennessee that did a little over $1 million in gross sales. What you're going to see break down from cost of goods expenses at the end of the day. Alabama's right at almost a 30% EBITDA, and Tennessee is right at about a 37% EBITDA.
Wow. And just to kind of put that into perspective, do you have an idea of how long each of those locations have been up and running?
I do. This is the great story about this brand is that the Alabama location was the founder, launched in about 2012, franchised it, but then realized really quickly that he might be a little over his head when it comes to franchising. Decided to pause for a bit and just wait until the right partner opportunity came across, and that was when Horsepower Brands and iPhone came together in 2020. Uh, the location in Tennessee he sold prior to Horsepower Brands taking them on. So both of those locations have been able to generate that type of income and EBITDA prior to Horsepower Brands. So those are pretty. Now that they're underneath the Horsepower Brands umbrella, their business look drastically different. They're more efficient, they're more profitable, and they are, in their own words, they were glad to be a part of the Horsepower Brand umbrella for sure.
So the brand then was established in 2012 and Horsepower took it over in 2020. And I believe you first started franchising then in 2022 or
So 20, yeah, kind of 2021, putting the team together and getting things in place, as I mentioned earlier on, like we're going to do a lot of legwork ahead of time. So
Mhm.
about early 2022 is when we actually launched and started doing development for iPhone.
Wow. Okay. So, what else? Let's talk about the average ticket because this is a high ticket dollar item, which is great because you're needing fewer customers given the investment that your clients are making. So, average ticket is around $7,400. So what is one of your most expensive services and how high can those tickets go?
Oh wow! So yeah, average ticket $7,400, typically on the residential side. When it gets into commercial, that number can be several hundred thousand. So you're talking about landing a job that can change your year drastically. a big ticket business like this can definitely do that. And we have already been hearing some feedback from our franchisees. They're starting to land big commercial accounts and jobs out there. So that's kind of one of the things that we do is support wise is bringing people in to help with, as you said, like, hey, not everybody's experienced in insulation or the industry. What if I do go out and one of my guys lands a large commercial job? How do I bid that? What do we do? What's the process? Already have a team in place to help with that. Here's how we do it. If we need to help you bid that, we'll do that to make sure that we don't miss anything or you underbid or overbid. We're trying to be right in the middle.
And then the training of all of those individuals comes specifically from the Horsepower Brands training with iFOAM.
It does. We have a corporate location here in Omaha for iFOAM, and it's a very unique instance where the general manager running that location is actually buying it. So it is run like a true franchise, and he is basically doing it at the moment now some sweat equity, but he is raising capital, and we'll buy this business in 2 years. The method behind the madness there was that this is a technical business where we need to have state of the art training and wanted to make sure we had that close to Omaha where everybody else is at. So we built a state of the art training facility, and everybody comes here for the week, and they get actually get a chance to spray foam and go out into real conditions from a tech to a salesperson to even what the GM owner role would be. So it's a kind of a full blown day in the life of what it could look like once you come to Omaha. And the interesting thing is, even during our discovery days that we have here once a month, every candidate gets a chance. They suit up in protective gear and they get a chance to spray foam while they're here. So they really get to understand, okay, this is what it looks like and feels like to actually be in this industry.
Interesting. So that knowledge then is passed along as a franchisee continues to build their team and get these larger jobs. Then they're just training in their territory. And I would assume there's probably some online training that can be leveraged, but that knowledge is just passed along.
Passed along, and we also do industry specific, right? So there's going to be industry training that we're going to have our franchisees do. We're going to have regional trainings as well. So it's constant, ongoing, not just online training. There will be some things that will happen regionally. They've got franchise coaches they have access to that they can work with training modules on as well. And then they can always send them back to Omaha if they want to train. They just are out that expense of what that would cost.
So, on a last note, Whit, what does the competition in this space look like?
Yeah. So we love competition because I really view them as opportunity. So as you're looking at a market, you always hear like, gosh, there seems to be a lot of competition. That's great because that means that there's a huge need for what we're doing. So what you're going to find, and one thing that we task our candidates is to do a really great job of doing your own due diligence. Act like you're going to request a service and see what the competition looks like. There are very few other franchise models in the installation space, full installation services. You're going to find some mom and pops out there as well. But the markets we're looking into, whether they be large open-ended markets or more rural markets, we do see the opportunity where we can come in and be the 800-pound gorilla in the market just due to, again, the way that we present the marketing from the big box trucks with the pretty colors to the amount of volume and things that we can do as well. So we become that preferred installation company fairly easily. Just in short, is the number one thing, which is so amazing, is that you think about this from somebody who even owns a business, half the battle is answering the phone, which a majority of the time we see is where the ball is dropped.
And that's where horsepower comes in with the national call center and so forth.
That's right.
That's excellent. So a couple last thoughts. Number one, branding is spot on. It is hard to forget the iPhone logo. So I mean, it's fun, it's colorful, I love it. So as a part of my job as a franchise consultant, I have the opportunity to, I guess, what would you say, network with other brokers or consultants, and we share best practices. We talk about brands such as iFOAM or franchise organizations such as Horsepower Brands. And, this foam or insulation came up as a topic within the past couple weeks. And we're like, okay, how do you decide between, X, Y, and Z as far as what you would show your client? And I swear to God, this is a true story. One of a very prominent broker in our community, she's like, if iFOAM has territory available, it's iFOAM. I would never ever want to go up against a horsepower brand in a territory. So I think that just spoke spades as far as, the level of insight into the hundreds and hundreds of brands that I have and my counterparts have as franchise consultants. I think that speaks volumes about what horsepower does for their investors.
I appreciate I appreciate you saying that. That's exactly what we're looking to do, is to be predominant area, right, and be remembered. But also just changing the narrative on franchising is our big goal, right? Of end of the day, how much how much can we give back to our franchisees? Where can we add value? Um, to what they're doing, because as you well know, we're not successful till the franchisee is successful, right? And so
Absolutely.
our main focus is how do we drive revenue back to our franchisees, right? The quicker they can get up and cash flowing and earning money, the better off we all are. So that's the main focus, is always about franchisee first. I think that's important.
Absolutely. Well, Whit, thank you so much for joining me today. You have been fantastic. And for anybody listening, if you are interested in learning more about iFOAM or any of the horsepower brands, feel free to reach out to me at Stacie@fusionfranchising.com. Thanks and have a great day.